Good morning, gang. Happy Friday. Another end of another week. And so I thought I'd do this one from the cave. So hence we're here, but good reason for it. Prepping is nothing new to a lot of people. Okay, prepping is something that civilians need to learn a lot of military idea from. Okay. And that's kind of why I said in the title, prep like your special forces, okay? And P.A.C.E. If you all know what P.A.C.E. is. Now, we, as preppers, you all know you need to have, two is one, two is one and one is none, have backups for your backups, everything, all true, okay? P.A.C.E. is basically the military acronym for it. And it was originally started as a system of communications. And that's kind of where I'm going to go with it this morning, but I want to extrapolate a little bit on it. Now, P.A.C.E. stands for Primary, Alternate, Contingency, Emergency. Okay. So, and you can apply this to about any of your prepping needs to make sure you're covered. Let's use food. All right, real simple. Your primary source of food is the grocery store. Your alternate source of food is your pantry. Your contingency sort of food is your garden. And your emergency sort of food is, say, hunting or fishing, at least for me. Now, with this, just like most everything else in prepping, there is no one size fits all. You've got to work this to how it works for you. Okay, because everybody's situation is a little different. I mean, guys know I've mentioned mountain men many times. Madison, the guy who's up in Alaska, if you ever watched the show, his primary source of food is not the grocery store. Okay, so his pace would be completely different than mine. But apply it to anything else. Apply it to your transportation. Okay, your primary is going to be your car, your truck, if you live on an island, your boat, whatever it would be. Your alternate is going to be, say, a motorcycle, an ATV, a 4x4, a side-by-side, whatever it be. Your contingency is going to be a bicycle, roller skates, a skateboard, something with wheels that can get you moving a little bit faster. And obviously emergency is, foot power, the soles of your shoes. Or you can think of your weaponry, okay? Your primary is going to be your rifle, your AR, your AK, your 308, whatever you're going to use. Your secondary is going to be your sidearm. Your contingent is going to be a shotgun, for example. And again, remember, what are we talking? We're talking about as the threat gets closer and closer. I can hit a target with a rifle from a lot further distance than I can with a shotgun. I can hit with my sidearm further than I can with a shotgun. Shotgun, now we're getting into close quarters. My emergency, now is a knife, is a baseball bat. That's when the threat is right in my face. Okay. So it works in a lot of different aspects of prepping, because you never want to have just one thing, because if that thing fails you, you're screwed. So primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. So like I said, this originally came from special forces in the military. And it was originally toward communication. Now, everybody's a little different with your communication and how you're going to do it, but some of the stuff is the same, okay? Your primary form of communication, 99% of us already have. It's your telephone, your cell phone, your landline, whatever it would be, okay? Right now, your primary is the stuff that you'd use right now, okay? So your cell phone is your primary. But if the cell phone towers go down, how are you going to communicate between family members, MAG members, whatever? This is where it all gets a little sticky. If your family members are within a couple of miles, no big deal. If your family members are within a couple of states, now you have an issue. So a lot of people will say ham radio is your alternate. I'm not going to disagree, depending on your situation. Okay. Now, ham radio for communicating over distances, provided you have pre-coordinated it with the family member that's 2 states over, Good. Okay. People could say, well, gee, you can listen to emergency broadcasts. You can listen to the weather on ham. Yes, you can. But I'm not overly concerned about the fact that my ham radio can pick up somebody in Sri Lanka. Okay. That's not a deal. So for a lot of people, ham is a good thing. For me, I don't see the necessity for it. Okay. So as for my alternate, I use two-way radios. And now all commo is going to have pros and cons. Okay. Cell phone. You got a cell phone bill. Can't pay the bill. You got no cell phone. Two-way radios. Okay. By the way, with radios, guys, always get them in pairs because one radio does you no good. Okay. Unless you're talking to yourself, you need somebody to be on the receiving end. So, but two-way radios, pros and cons to it. Pros, it's a relatively secure form of communication. Okay. You have it pre-programmed with a specific channel. You get all the radios on there. If somebody else by accident had the same channel program, they're going to hear you, but that's not super likely unless maybe you're in New York City or something like that. But where I am, the chances of somebody else being on the same channel on two-way radios is extremely slim. Disadvantage to it is, again, it's a secure communication. So I can't hear anything from the outside. The only thing I can hear from this radio is something that somebody on this specific channel, who's probably already in my mag, is telling me. So I'm not going to be able to gather any outside information, any outside intelligence. Not that expensive. You can get the radios for under $100 a piece. Okay. Contingency. Okay. Now, there's a couple of ways to do contingency. And CB radio is my contingency, but there's a couple of ways to this. All right. Handheld Cb. Now, this one that I've got, it's about $100 a piece. Okay. And again, yes, I have them in pairs. Okay. What I like about this particular CB is, as you see this thing sticking out over here, if I can get it off because it's magnetized. There. Okay. Is I can also hook this up. I can take this antenna off the radio, and I can hook it up with this wire, and this magnetized antenna can go on the top of my vehicle. You hear it click there as we go down. So it also becomes a portable in a vehicle radio. So if you're in a bug out situation, you've got the whole mag going. If you ever tried to use a radio inside the car, it doesn't work a whole well. You got to have an antenna outside. This way I can have an antenna and I can talk to other vehicles in my convoy. Now, let me stop this so I can move this real quick and I'll show you the other part. Okay, so here's the other part about CB is here in the cave, I have the base station. Okay, and commo is basically my deal for the mag. I'm the base. And so anybody that is on the CB, I can communicate with from the base station. Handheld CB is not going to have nearly the range as a base station antenna is going to. So if I have people that are 2 miles north of me and people that are 2 miles south of me, let's say on patrol, maybe they can't communicate from distance, terrain, trees, whatever would be, but they could communicate to me and then I could communicate to them. So, a CB base station is a good idea. And, for all you guys that remember these things, okay, back in the 70s, back in the 80s, they're a little hard to find anymore. Not a whole lot of places make CB base stations, but you can get them. They're probably about $500 a pop. So, this is something that the mag can hopefully help you out with. But again, this is the key to the whole CB setup. So, all right, so let's go on from there. Now, advantages and disadvantages to CBs. They're not cheap by any means. Okay, like I said, the handheld units I've got are about $100 a pop, and the base was $500. So that's not super cheap. Advantage is I've got a little bit more distance than I'm going to with my two ways, and I'm also a lot more powerful, if you will. I mean, if again anybody's ever used CB, know what the skip is. Sometimes late at night you can pick up signal from halfway around the world on some of these things. Okay, I mean, I remember sitting in my car on a car CB once back in the 80s, and I was talking with somebody in Switzerland while I was in El Paso, Texas. I was in the middle of the night on guard duty. Advantage to CBs, like I said, you have more power, a little bit more distance. You can also pick up outside communication. You can get on the emergency channel, channel 9, and possibly summon help or, hear what's going on. You can get on the channel 19, what we all know, breaker 19 stuff, and maybe pick up some traffic, gather some intel there, okay? Disadvantage to the CB is the same as the advantage. Because you can hear everything coming in, everybody else can hear everything you're putting out, okay? So again, when you're using CB, having some sort of code, if you will, is going to be very important to being on the radio. John has a long mustache type stuff. So that is your contingency. Emergency situations, okay? Emergency is when you're going to get down to, oh my God, what do we do, right? Cheap little walkie-talkies, right? Whoops, before I knock everything over here, this little pair of walkie-talkies cost me about $20, all right? So, downside is, even though you see, it says, 22 channels or whatever, they don't work with the CB, okay? It's not the same channels here. Those are emergency that you can possibly use 2 guys on guard duty, patrolling an area, 1,000 feet wide or whatever. They're not close enough they can talk, but they could use something like that. You're not going to get that much distance out of here. I can't get, these things say they'll go 16 miles, okay? I've tried this with Mountaintop Prepper. We can't get it to go a half a mile through the terrain here. So, maybe a quarter of a mile. But, emergency communications can be about anything. It could be, and think about these things, guys, pencil and paper. You leave a note somewhere, okay? Chalk on the street, on the side of a wall, something in code. Go to point 2, you left or whatever, and you had a meetup point, and everybody gets there, and there's on the wall, go to point 2. Don't say go to 123 Main Street. Everybody knows, okay, we got here, something happened, we got to go over there. It could be a signal mirror. It could be smoke signals, literally, okay? I mean, you all know the military uses colored smoke for different things, right? 4th of July time, we talked about this, was a good time to buy fireworks, if you will, not necessarily for 4th of July, but for something to use in your preps. So, again, P.A.C.E is going to have a whole lot of uses, and it's something you really need to practice, because best laid plans of mice and men are always going to fail. You go, hey, you know what? I'll always use my cell phone. That's great, okay? Until you have no electricity and you can't charge your cell phone, until the cell phone tower goes out, until the bill can't get paid and they cut off your service, whatever it would be. There's a whole lot of reasons. Same thing, like I said, about food. Gee, why do we all stock food? Because we want to have an alternate plan in case our primary doesn't exist anymore. That's the whole point, guys. So when you're doing your prepping, and you can really whittle this down, okay? When you're doing prepping, always put P.A.C.E into play. And you can think about, fire starting. You've all got multiple ways to do fire starting. What's primary? Primary is your Bic lighter. What's your alternate? It may be your ferro rod. What's your contingency? It may be your magnifying glass. What's your emergency? Rubbing 2 sticks together, whatever it would be. Think about your food. What's your primary? Oh, gee, you know what? I'm cooking with olive oil. Then, my backup, maybe I have vegetable shortening. My emergency, maybe, contingency, maybe lard, whatever it would be. You got to have all these backups, but it's a very certain individual type deal for yourself and for your mag. Not everything that I do will work for you. Not everything you do will work for me. But you need to have this plan as well worked out as possible as you can in all aspects of your prepping. Trust me, you need backups to your backups to your backups just in case something happens. Have a good Friday. Pinball out.